Hi Stampers, this is Kim with Great Inspirations. I'm glad you're joining me today. I want to talk about scraps, and specifically cardstock scraps. And as you can see, I have a box of them here. All different sizes. Some of them I've used already on other projects, and some of them are waiting to be used on other projects. Some, of course, are smaller, and some are larger. Now, not too long ago, this box was overflowing with scraps of cardstock. So I went through them and organized them just a little bit. But before too long, these scraps will go into folders that I keep with certain colors. Like I have a folder for blues and greens and yellows, pinks, that kind of thing. But this is the box I keep right by my trimmer. So as I have scraps, I can put them in there and then hopefully use them. But for some reason, as I said, I allowed this box to become overflowing to the point you could not see the box. Now, some of these scraps, for example, this one, it's a little short for a card base, but I could use this for some layers, for some mats. So I have all these bigger ones that I could do that with, but these smaller ones, I wanted to find something to do with them. So this is what I did. I just took some of the scraps of cardstock and cut them into 1/4 inch strips. The lengths do vary, but these cards are the results. And this one I call a staggered strip card because the focal piece is made from strips that are definitely staggered, but they're also cut at different sizes to help with the staggering. Then this is, I call it a crisscross strip shaker card. And then this one, I just did some paper weaving. So I thought we would walk through how I did each of these cards, or at least the elements on each of these cards. Let's start with this staggered strip card. It's fairly easy to construct. You're going to need some strips, of course, and like I said, they're 1/4 inch wide. And I have cut them at varying lengths. And let me see if I can get them the way we're going to need them here. Yeah, the orange, or that's actually pumpkin pie. Then the azure afternoon and the lemon lime twist. So what I did to start off with, I did cut my strips, and then I also have a card base, and it's just basic white, and it's the thick basic white, and it's 11 by 4 1/4, scored and folded at 5 1/2. I have a piece of basic black cardstock that is 3 by 5 inches, and then I have a little greeting that I have prepared, and this is from the Charming Sentiments, cut out with the Sentiments dies. And then I have a piece of cardstock that is 3 inches by 4 1/4. And that's what we're going to work with right now. And what I did, you can probably maybe see the 2 pencil marks on there. Well, what I did, this is 3 inches wide. So at the top, I marked the halfway point, which is 1 1/2, and I did it with a pencil, and you're not going to see it, so it just doesn't matter. You could use a marker, pen, whatever you care to use. Then I flipped it to the other side, got my ruler and put it at 1 1/2, which is the center point of 3 inches, marked that, and then I put my strips on here. We're going to just use this where we've marked it to put our center strip, which is right here. And I need to check, see how, okay, this paper is not 4 1/4, it's 4. I think on this one on my sample I used 4 1/4 and then I had to trim it a bit. But this is 4, so this strip will fit right over the top of those pencil marks. So we'll get some liquid adhesive. You can use any other kind of adhesive that you care to use. And just put that right there. Now, like I said, this is 4 inches long. The next 2 strips that will go on either side of this are 3 3/4, so 1/4 inch smaller. So you kind of want to look at this and just kind of center this horizontally on this one. So you have about the same amount of white cardstock on this end and this end. And now we're going to take the other strip, and this is Coastal Cabana. This was Crushed Curry. Of course, you use your scraps, use whichever colors you like. Now I'm going to do the pumpkin pie ones, and these are 3 1/2 inches long, still that 1/4 inch wide. Move this down just a tad. There we go. Okay, so we've had 4 inches, 3 3/4, 3 1/2, and now we have 3 1/4. And again, we're just centering it horizontally on the one underneath, or in this case above. And you can eyeball it, that's fine. You just do the very best you can. Start over on this one. And then the last one, which is our lemon lime twist, and that is 3 inches. Okay. So there we have that, and I'm going to take a piece of paper towel, and I'm just going to blot some of the glue off that has seeped through. There we go. Now we're going to take some paper snips, and all you have to do is just cut around these. And what I did, I just snipped there, and there. You know, whatever works for you. Just want to snip these off. And I'll do these. Sort of easy once you get going. That little piece didn't want to come off. There we go. And of course the edge, you just go right along the edge of your cardstock. And then we'll do this end. And like I say, just do it however it works for you. If you just feel like you want to cut all around, that's fine. This is just what kind of worked for me. There we go. Almost finished. Okay. There's a little bit of white still there. Okay. That looks pretty good. There we go. I'm going to get rid of these scraps real fast. Well, maybe not so fast. There we go. And now we're going to bring in our card base and our other parts. Now we need to get some dimensionals for this. And I'm out of the larger, nope, I'm not, I have them. The black dimensionals, I'm going to use those on the back of this since I have the black cardstock. Thought I was out of them, but I have some. And I will probably put several on here to make sure it stays in place. There we go. Take these off. And get my things all right here. Center it as best you can. And then we're going to get some of those small black dimensionals, and I'm going to put one down here and one on the other end of the greeting, because this will span the focal point here, and this is on dimensionals, so this and this can be on dimensionals, but we don't want this center part on dimensionals. We'll put some adhesive there. Just use my liquid glue. Remove these. And then wishing you the happiest of birthdays. And then we can put some adhesive on the back of this. Get our card base. And there you go. Now, as you can see, I have put some little decorative dots on here, and I did not bring them with me to my little table here, but you would want to maybe put some of those on this card, but that is how I did my staggering strips card. So we'll move on to the next card, and that's my shaker card, my crisscross strips shaker card. So what you will need, I just used a basic gray card base, and it's the 8.5 by 5.5, scored and quartered at 4, or scored and folded at 4 1/4, and I have put a piece of basic white cardstock that is 4 by 5 1/4 in here and stamped sentiment. But you, of course, can put whatever you want in here. So this is our card base. And then you need 3 layering dies that are consecutive in size. So these are the stitch rectangles, which are now retired by Stampin' Up. But I use them anyway because I forgot they were retired, to be quite honest. But many of you have them. But you can use any dies you have, be they circle dies, square dies. Anything you have will work on to do this card. So in order to make a frame, just right here, I took the largest die and the smallest of the 3 dies, centered them on some cardstock, and I used basic gray, just like this, secured them, and ran them through the die cut machine to get the frame. So that was the smallest and the largest. Now, the medium, the die that's in the middle of these two, I used a piece of basic gray cardstock right there, and that is going to be what's going to go under our frame to kind of hold the shaker elements inside. And then I used this same one, the medium one, to cut a piece of window sheet. Okay, so there's those pieces. Move the dies out of the way. So first thing we need to do is get that frame. And it's right here. And I am going to put some, actually I think I'll use tear and tape because it will fit on here a lot better. So we'll get some tear and tape. Just going to put it on all 4 sides. It doesn't have to be perfect. Meet up at the edges or anything like that. We just need to have some adhesive on here. Okay, there we go. Find my, take your pick tool. And we'll get the backings off. Maybe. There we go. Now, all of the measurements for all these cards and all the supplies that I used, that's all going to be on my corresponding blog post for this video. And that corresponding blog post can be found, the link to it can be found in the description of this video. So I probably should have told you that earlier. You don't need to worry about the measurements. I also have on there pictures of these cards, and I have a list not only of the supplies, but I have a few directions for you there. So you don't have to remember all those either. But anyway, so there's our tear and tape. And now I chose 3 colors of cardstock that I had in my scraps. And this is Mossy Meadow, Misty Moonlight, Mossy Meadow, Misty Moonlight, and Wild Wheat. And I have 3 of each of these. And like I said, they're a 1/4 inch, and they're all about 4 1/4 inches long. So what I did, I just decided to lay them on here in sort of a crisscross pattern. That's exactly what I did. And let's see. did do 9 of them. I was trying to leave some bigger spaces. You know, that looks pretty good, just like that. Let's see if I can find another place to put this. I think that's good. So we'll just have extra winter wheat there. And then I just took my snips and went along the edges and cut off what was hanging over. And I just realized I'm going to need to step away for a moment because I forgot to get my foam adhesive strips that we're going to need to make this actual shaker card. Need to cut that little piece off. There we go. So I will be right back in just 1 second, or maybe 3. And here we go. I have my foam adhesive strips, which they look like this when you open them up. And first, before we use those, I do need to put some more tear and tape over this because we want our window sheet to be held on there really nice and tight. So we're just going to put a little more on here. A little more on. Sometimes I feel like that describes me, like when I forget my adhesive strips. Anyway, here we go. Need a little bit up here. Okay. Now I'll take your pick tool again with the little, it's the paper piercing part of it. And get this one. There it is. And just 2 more. Well, there we go. And then 1 more. I'm going to stick into my piece here. I need to kind of take care of this bottom one. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take this micro cloth. Just get all the things off of it. And I'm going to just get this right on here as best as I can. And now I'm going to use these strips. And we want to go as close to the edge of our frame as possible. I'm sorry if I got my head in the way there. Okay. Because we want to make a little enclosure for our shaker elements. Just going to butt this right up against that one. And do the same thing again. Then I need a piece to go across the top. I always save all my pieces because if nothing else, I can always cut them into smaller pieces and use them like dimensionals. Okay. There's that. I'll put these away. Okay, now I have some sequins here that I've just, I don't know where they're collected them over the years, but you can use sequins, you can use loose gems, any kind of loose beads, any little thing that you want to put in there. Now I'm going to carefully pull these off. Let's peel the backings off. Here's that. And now we're going to take, remember that piece of basic gray we cut out with the medium-sized die? And we're just going to lay it right on top of those foam strips. And there's our little shaker element. So let me get some glue. Want to come out now. There we go. That should be more than enough. We're going to have our card base. Flip this over. Center it as well as you can. And then I'm going to, maybe not quite yet, press gently, but then I'm going to open it so I can kind of gently press and get that glue to kind of adhere to our card base. And there is our crisscross shaker card. And then here is a greeting. And my greeting happens to fit right across the center of the card. And I'm actually going to use some Stampin' Seal Plus to put it on there. But you can put any greeting. You could cut it with a circle die or a punch or whatever you want. This is just the one that I have. And there is the crisscross shaker card. So now we have this card remaining, and it's just paper weaving. And so what I did was I took a piece of black cardstock for my card base, and here's a piece for the inside, and it's 4 by 5 1/4. My card base is 11 by 4 1/4, scored and folded at 5 1/2. And then I took a piece of cardstock that is, remember here, let's see. This is 4 by 5 1/4. And I took the circle dies, 2 of them, the 2 largest, from the Stylish Shapes dies. And the smaller of the 2, I cut a window in my front panel for my card. Then I took both of them, both the dies, with some basic black cardstock, and again I just put them on the cardstock, got them centered and put them in there with as evenly as I could to have the same amount of space around the circle. Ran it through and got a frame, and that frame will be going right here. Now for my woven part, I had a bunch of scraps, 6, 7 colors, and I don't know, these are all about, let's see, 5¼ inches long or so. They don't need to be quite that long, some of them aren't. And I took a piece of printer paper, or you could use an old piece of designer series paper, or you could use cardstock if you like. Doesn't matter. But this just happens to be a piece of printer paper that is 4x4. And let me get my craft sheet out again. And what I did was I took some adhesive and I just sort of went, get it going here, along sort of just the top, just kind of an arc. And then I started putting my colors on. Just have to kind of wait or look and see where you want them and how you want them arranged and what kind of order. And this is Mellow Mambo, and I think this is Sweet Sorbet. And then, let's see, this is Pumpkin Pie. You do want to leave a little space between them. I'm sticking to my adhesive. Okay, let me get these fixed a little bit here. Get them back in order. And then I use some Daffodil Delight. I have adhesive on my finger. That's part of the problem. And then some, I think this is Lemon Lime Twist again. And then Coastal Cabana. This is that Azure Afternoon, one of our new core colors. And then here is some gorgeous grape. So there. So now we've got all of these right where they need to be. And I'm going to put some tape just right here over the top of some of these. So hold them in place a little better and keep my fingers from sticking. And then we're going to start weaving. So these are all vertical. So we're going to start weaving horizontally. And I'll start with this Melon Mambo. So it's under, then over. And under, over, under, over, under, and over. And then I just pushed it up as far as I could. And then went on to the next one, which was over and under. Remember how we did this when we were in school? I don't know about you, but when I was in brownies and Girl Scouts ages ago, we made sit-a-pons, which sit-a-pons were basically a paper bag from the grocery store that we put newspaper in, and then we sewed it up with a needle and thread to make a little mat for us to sit on the floor on. And then for our snack time, we used some construction paper. And we wove, just like this, just some paper weaving, and we wove us placemats. So then now we have the red one, so let's go with the pumpkin pie, and it's under, over, under, over, under, over, under, and try to get it over, and then just scoot it back up. And you will just continue this until you get down to here. And once you get down to here, now I forgot to mention, this hole I cut with the largest of the circle dies, okay? So now, once you get all of these woven in, you're going to take the largest of the circle die again and kind of line it up with where you'd cut the original hole through here. Run it through the die cut machine, and you will get something that looks like this. Now all we have to do is get our things here, and the first thing I'm going to do is put the frame on. I'm just going to use some liquid glue if it cooperates with me. Doesn't want to do that today for some reason. There we go. Just going to line it up right there. Just hold it in place for a second or two. There we go. Now we'll flip this over, and I'm just going to put some glue right here. Just right around the circle. I'm going to just put this right there, and because we cut it with the largest of the dies, and because our window was cut with the smaller of the two dies, when we flip it over, there's what we see. And then you have a choice. This one happens to be on dimensionals, and on another one that I made, I just adhered it to the card base. That is totally up to you. I think I will adhere this one just with some liquid adhesive. There we go, and as you can see, I have a greeting on there, wishing you the brightest of birthdays. I thought that was appropriate with all the bright colors. And then there is the inside, and I'll show you what I did to the inside of this card. I just used those strips again and just put some diagonally in the corners. And if you wanted to, you could actually weave some other strips through there if you wanted to, but for me that was fine just like that. So there is the card I made with the scraps doing the paper weaving. And then here's the staggered strips, and then we have the shaker cards. So those were just some ideas I had on ways to use these scraps of cardstock. I'm sure you can come up with lots of other ways. I want to thank you so much for joining me. Please remember that all of the measurements and pictures and supplies that I used will be found on my corresponding blog post, and the link to that is in the description of this video. But also, please remember that the whole point of this exercise was to start to use up some of my cardstock scraps. I really don't like to throw them away. So, use the colors that you have. If you don't want to use basic gray or basic white or basic black cardstock for your backgrounds, use what you have. Use the sentiments that you have. And just let's start using things, and let's start using up our supplies. That was my whole point in this. I don't want to waste stuff. I want to use it. So again, thanks for joining me. And until next time, stamp happy.